So we are here, we are on the eve, we are on the cusp of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. We're here for episode 28 of the End Product Podcast. Whatever you're watching this, listening to this, whatever, rate, reviews, follows, likes, subscribes, all that good stuff really does help out. And we thank everyone who is here to listen in as we get set for the Global Cup on SORARE, the World Cup itself, and everything and anything else that kind of falls in between the cracks. As always, of course, I've got Stishy Boy with me. Stish, how are you?
I'm good. Excited for the World Cup. Feels a bit weird because it's like near Christmas, but here we are. Excited for it. Here we are.
And it's a kind of warm November as well in the UK, isn't it? You know, as far as Novembers go anyway. It's been
a bit wet, but the temperatures are not too bad.
It's not wet where this man is. He is all the way. He's probably the closest man to Qatar that I think I know. He has got probably one of the favourites for the tournament as his home nation. Coming back to the podcast, I'm sure you've been on before, Jeremy Magan. Thanks for joining us, my man.
Thanks for having me. Am I closer to Qatar than what you guys are? I think it's like a...
Maybe I'm making an assumption here, actually.
Bang in the middle. Nice summer starting over here. And I got the two shirts behind. My two teams playing each other for the opener. Not a lot of chances for the goal shot, unfortunately. I think this year, but we never know. They might surprise us.
I think I just made that assumption because of the climate. As I think about the global map, yes, you're probably quite right. Maybe it's closer to us.
Bang on the middle is maybe where we are.
But weather-wise, you're definitely much closer to, you know, what the conditions in Qatar will be like. And again, I'm pretty sure returning to the podcast, he's definitely been on my channel and a bunch of other places in the meantime. Host of his own podcast as well, of course. But we've got back on Josh Forth. Josh, good to see you also.
And you, mate. Pleasure to be on. Thanks very much for having me. I'm really struggling. Stish was saying about he was looking forward to the World Cup. I'm struggling to get a zest for it, you know? It feels a bit weird. Stish was saying, you know, it's a bit weird, like sort of kind of Christmas or whatever. But I've been like, normally I think, you know, you're used to a summer without football, aren't you? And then it comes around to a World Cup or a Euros year and you're like, oh, fantastic, got some foot in the summer this year. It sort of feels like a bit of an inconvenience this time, you know? So I don't know. I don't think it's helped by, England. Like, I just don't really have any high hopes for England at all. So, we'll see. We'll see how we go. But yeah, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
No, absolute pleasure, mate. And as I was switching the lights on and getting set up and everything, and I was just kind of thinking, you know, about what we might go through and all the rest. So I was thinking, as far as England fans go, I think Josh is going to be relatively agnostic to the whole, you know, Three Lions and all that caper, you know, because Josh, you're normally quite, you know, not emotionless, you know, but quite, a straight line guy when it comes to football, especially in this kind of setting on SORARE and the Global Cup and everything. So
is that why you
say that right off the bat as well?
You didn't want any of us shouting about how amazing England are. Now we're going to bring it home. We've had enough of that for the last few decades, and you wanted Josh on to make sure that it didn't get too carried away in here, I think.
Do you think you're going to be getting carried away, Stishy?
No. If you'd have asked me a year ago, I'd have told you we're going to win the World Cup. But the last sort of 6 months of friendlies and, what do you call it? The Nations League and everything that's happened since the Euros hasn't filled me with confidence going into the World Cup. But, you know, stranger things have happened. And I think Southgate seems to have a knack of getting results in the finals, which we were not used to before. So who knows? If we hit the ground running in the first couple of games in the group stages, we'll all start getting carried away again, I'm sure.
Yes, very quickly, I'm sure. Once you beat Iran 4-0, they'll be going balubas and driving down the street with the flags out and everything.
I'll be back here in about 3 weeks.
I think Iran will definitely score against us.
Face painted in about 3 weeks' time.
On the podcast as well, I'm sure. Josh, you reckon Iran are going to be taking the clean sheet away from you?
Yeah, I think Iran will score. Like, I think Jeremy and Azmoun are probably going to cause our defense. Just, I know Southgate will set up even like against Iran. He'll probably set up very defensively. It's like before. You can probably tell I'm not a big Gareth Southgate fan. And if he does, then yeah, you know, I'm sort of used to that. But yeah, I think I don't think Iran are a very good team, but they've certainly got individual quality with the two up front. So yeah, if they can, I struggle to. I presume Maguire's going to start, and I struggle to see him handling Jeremy with any proficiency, to be honest. So like he's probably going to be similar standard to Maguire in the air, which is normally Maguire's like dominance. So I think we will probably concede. Hopefully we still win, but we'll see.
Fair play. Yeah. Good shout, man, as well. So I think on the Global Cup, those guys are probably quite cheap as well. If you fancy, a goal, if you think that's an easy fixture for a bag of goal for somebody like Asmun or Taremi, then for the budget those guys float about on, maybe they're a shout.
I don't know that Asmun's going to play though. No, isn't he? He's injured or something, right?
I don't know if he's injured, Jeremy, but the managers had as being pressured to drop him. I think there was something gone on, I think politically or something, where he said something which perhaps people didn't agree with in Iran or whatever. The manager was under, I think, some reasonably severe. I'm not 100% au fait with the situation, but he was under some pressure to not take Asmun to the tournament. So he might not start. If he didn't, then obviously that would be good for England. But we'll see how we go. And
Jeremy, it's been I don't know if it's been good news and then bad news for France, or if it's just been bad news and then bad news and then bad news. How optimistic are you, from a French perspective, coming into this World Cup?
Yeah, pretty optimistic. I think when we are bad, like we've been bad the past 6 months, it's all good news. Like it's when we are expected that we start having a large head, and then we forgot to play football. But when we just came off 2 losses against Denmark and a loss and a draw against Croatia, and the last game we won is maybe Austria. So we've been pretty shit, but I think Benzema with the Ballon d'Or, Mbappe's been heavily criticized. Everybody's saying the defense isn't going to be good. Like that plays right into the end of Deschamps, and straight away in the press conference he said we're done with 3-5-2. We are back to 4-3-3. We're back to what we know. He says, Lucas Hernandez can be as a centre back, and Theo can be on the left, and people who like football will enjoy that. And he said, no, Lucas Hernandez will be the left back. So he's going to have 4 centre back in the 4 positions. So he's doing what Deschamps does. So we're pretty comfortable. They're just going to play not Simeone style, but almost that what we've seen toward the end of 2018. But I think the interesting thing is the team that we're going to see the first 2-3 games is probably not going to be the team that we're going to see run of 16 quarterfinal, because that's what Deschamps usually does. So I'm yet to see who's going to be the one that really explodes during that World Cup, whether it's Chouameni or maybe a out of left field choice, Konate or Guendouzi. But there's going to be one of them who's going to find his little hole in the team, and it's going to be good to see. Up front, it's not changing. It's Griezmann, Mbappe, Benzema, and maybe Giroud, and N'Goukou not being here. It would have been played 5 minutes a game, so somebody else will get 5 minutes. But the up front, the 3-4 are there.
I'm quite surprised to hear quite surprised to hear those Deschamps quotes, because I expected to see a big role for Theo Hernandez, and I put him in my first draft of my team because I was looking at the defender pool, and he's quite expensive. He's 15 points, but he is in that France team, if he plays, really 100 capable. For a Global Cup, that's kind of what you're after in defence, I think. So what you've just said there confirms my fears, which because when you look at that squad, man, there's just, how many centre backs have he's got? 7 or something. Pavard, Upamecano, Varane, Konate, and there must be at least another one. Because there's an obscene amount. Look, Koundé, Lucas Hernandez,
Saliba,
yeah,
Saliba, yeah. That's why he likes to play
back.
though. Saliba and Koundé are going to be right back. Lucas Hernandez is the left back. Yeah, that's why he plays. When he plays
what
the big games.
I was thinking, but is the last World Cup, Pavard was right back, and that's where he really blew up. He scored 2 worldies from right back. And
do you remember that volley he scored? God,
yeah,
that was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's why I thought Pavard has to be the World Cup right back, and then if you're going to play him there, then Theo just to fly, but maybe Lucas in.
He doesn't like Deschamps wants to win, and when he wants to win, he doesn't play any risk. The only way Theo plays is if in the first game he does Lucas and Pavard, and then whoever he puts at the back. We don't have Varane to start with. We don't have Kimpembe anymore, so it's going to be an interesting one. I think we should see Upamecano, so at least he's got 3 Bayern players in defense. They know each other. If that fails, then maybe he brings Theo in, but I think Theo is going to get him for the last 20 minutes when he doesn't win, kind of thing. Otherwise, he might not see much of the ball. Theo was perfect for 3-5-2. But if you drop the 3-5-2, then you don't really need to have him in.
I thought that's what we would do.
Rabiot is going to be one of the underrated who's going to have a big role.
Yeah, I was looking at Rabiot yesterday. Actually, I need a for my rare special team. I need a midfielder, and yeah, I was looking at Rabiot and Modric as potential options.
Tchouaméni is the one who's going to be like the main role, and next to him they're going to find two, and I think you're going to have most likely Fofana next to Tchouaméni because they know each other, and Rabiot, kind of what Matuidi was doing in 2018, like defensively he's a midfield, and offensively he's like a winger, and then a guy like Camavinga should have like some serious minutes because Deschamps likes what he saw with him coming in the last 20 minutes to Real Madrid. So yeah, there'll be a bit. Deschamps has been let out quite a bit in press conference, which usually is quite secret. So I don't know if he's trying to play mind games or whatever, but he's kind of almost given what he's going to do during the whole World Cup.
Yeah, that's what I see. I thought it'd be the Bayern back three and then just slap Theo on the side, and then just run up the left with him and Mbappe. But hey, if it's not to be, it's not to be. When it comes to we've got the full squads out now for the World Cup, and there's been a few squads come out, and when you're seeing them come out, there's a lot of question marks in different positions. And I think coming into the group stages, like you kind of alluded to there, Jeremy, a lot of squads will manage the group stage as a siloed kind of event. Qualify, win this game, don't lose that game, that kind of thing. And then when we do get to the round of 16 and beyond, it is like, it's a straight knockout, so that's when we're probably more likely to see, best 11s and whatever. With that kind of stuff in mind, how big a role do you think in the group stages in particular, the 5 subs thing is going to come into play?
I think I think they're not going to play most of them because we go from World Cups where teams have a whole month, 6 weeks almost to train together, to all of a sudden they've all but they've just rejoined each other 4 days ago, and they have a bit of training. So I think the 5 subs is more going to be for risk of injury than for trying to get them in, because I think the coach have to try and find their 11 real quick. You got 3 games to figure out who you're going to put on the knockout game. So unless players like, I don't know, Benzema or Varane, if they do play, for sure that they're going to get out because they have risk of injuries because they're just coming back from one. But I don't think we're going to see, for some teams, the teams that want to win, so France, even Spain or Brazil or Argentina, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of those. Yeah, with the 5 sub, I think coaches, they haven't had the time that usually you have before the World Cup to really test their team. So I think they're going to go into the group stage and they're just going to basically try and get their team playing, bar any injuries. If we look at Benzema or Varane, for example, in France, maybe if they play them, they're going to replace them early. But I think we're not going to see a lot of it. It's a fine line, right? You have to try as many players as possible to be ready for the knockout stage, but you also need to find your best team to go and win. So I think teams like Brazil, Argentina, France, Spain, the Netherlands, maybe England, the teams that we expect to go far, I don't expect them to do a lot of changes throughout the game unless it's late. There's not a lot of game as well that are going to be thrown away. Like France, if they finish second, they might play Argentina. So now the third game is actually very important. Same for other teams like England, etc. So I don't know. I think the 5 sub, the injury is the only reason why I would see it being used. We know how many players are either tired or injured right now when they're going to the World Cup. But otherwise, I feel like it's not going to be used that much. As a manager, as a coach, I don't think I would be happy to have to use more than the 3 subs.
I think it might be used as a time-wasting tactic by lesser nations, if they're ahead in a big game. To be honest, and that's like the only real downside I see with it. To be honest, I think if a lesser nation is a goal up against a big team, they're not going to make any subs because they're going to want their best players on the pitch because they have thin squads. And then when it gets to 87, 88, 89 minutes, they're just going to make 1 sub every 5 minutes, just to run the clock down, basically. So I think that's maybe the only negative, but otherwise, I think it's quite a positive thing to have. Obviously, it's sort of more, I don't know, formally accepted in modern day football, isn't it? With how intense the game is now, and that sort of thing is. I think it gives managers an opportunity to keep the players well rested, and at the end of the day, we all want to see the best standard of football at the World Cup. I think one thing about international tournaments that are held in the summer is players have a long, grueling season, don't get much time off, and then we sometimes see very lackluster tournaments because players are fatigued. Whereas this year, maybe it's not quite going to be so much like that. With players only having played half a season. I think one thing I found crazy is like Croatia and some other teams, they're playing friendlies today. I think that's mad. Well, I don't understand. I sort of get that, you want to get your team playing together, but the risk of losing a player for injury in a friendly seems to outweigh that for me. But I was just looking at their lineup. Actually, the Croatia one's just popped up on Twitter, and it doesn't seem like many of their starting players are playing. Brozovic hasn't played much football in this year. I think he's been injured, so he's starting. Probably just to try and get some match fitness. And then the only other starters I'd probably expect would be Livakovic is playing goal. Lovren might play, but I sort of expect him to go with Gvardiol and Satalo, but who knows? And then I think I expect Nikola Vlasic to play up front, and he is starting as well. But I think that seems really risky to me. I'm not sure I'd be doing that if I was a national team coach.
Well, I was just looking through the fixture list there when you were talking about friendlies, because I thought that's an interesting point. Because I know some teams are playing friendlies and some aren't. And some of the teams, I think Mexico played Japan, right? But outside of that, like Argentina, Croatia, some of these other nations are playing non-World Cup nations, and some of them have got nothing to lose. I think if it's Mexico, Japan, I think they'll probably be like, listen, let's not hurt anyone. Is that
play
okay?
It like touch rugby almost.
Yeah. But like another one caught my eye a minute ago, and it's like a real minnow. It's like Germany against somebody. And Argentina are playing UAE, and Germany are playing Oman, and it's like, how do you know one of them is now to make a name for themselves or something and just go crunch somebody or?
Well, I don't understand. Just why not just have a training? Like, how many players are in the squads? 26 players. What? Just have a training game, surely. That like you're playing. What are you actually going to get from playing a man? I don't understand. There must be financial benefits in there or something. I guess.
I heard Luis Enrique, because Spain is playing Jordan. And Luis Enrique said that one thing that he was scared of was how ready Asian teams are going to be against European teams because of the climate, the weather, etc. So he reckons like a team like Australia, because they played their qualifier against Peru in Qatar, they'll know the intensity of 90 minutes under that weather. And so he kind of hinted at, we'll do a friendly to see how we go 90 minutes against a team that is used to play like that. So maybe there's a bit of this. But I think the risk is definitely still pretty big.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great detail and a nice kind of tactical approach from them. I was thinking more might be just a wee bit of getting the whole squad kind of like in sync, because they'll all be on different patterns of when match day is, recoveries days are, training patterns, etc. And it may be just, you get together, you do the training sessions, you do the match, and then everyone's in a kind of sync of when they rest and when they're ready. But that's a great detail as well, Jeremy. With the sub thing, the main thing that I'm worried about isn't so much like the smaller nations, but the bigger ones, So like I'm looking at Argentina, for example, and I think we would maybe agree the favourite front three is Di Maria, Messi and Lautaro. But at any stage, if they are 2 or 3 goals clear, they have like a full new set of a front three. And we've seen across Europe with like the introduction of the 5 subs rules, more and more of like progressive attacking teams do rely on like a double triple switch at some stage in the game, where they will like totally change the forward positions or maybe freshen the midfield up or the wingers, that kind of thing. In terms of the Global Cup, how much of an impact do you think that kind of aspect might have on things?
Yeah, it's a good point, that, because you want to be selecting players that are going to get 90 minutes as regular as possible, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it's a very good point. And obviously, I guess I hadn't even thought about the heat, Jeremy, to be honest, but you'd make a great point. It's a massive thing, isn't it? And that's, again, probably why they've had this 5 subs as well. But yeah, I think you really want to be, for your Global Cup size, you want to be picking players that are going to play 90 as much as possible. This is making me rethink my De Bruyne over Kimmich scenario, but we'll see. I'm not sure.
I think as well, we don't know until the games really kick off, but there's all this talk of like this high-tech air conditioning being pumped into the stadium. So we don't know actually how hot it will be on the pitches during the games. It might not actually be as hot if this air conditioning does the job that they say it's going to do. So I'm not even so sure that how much of an effect that temperature is going to have until the games kick off, and we'll probably know within the first couple of games. I think obviously England playing Iran, and we're not acclimatized to any sort of heat like that apart from when we play in the off season. So I'm sure it'll be a massive point, especially if we don't get a result on Monday. I'm sure we'll be hearing all about the heat and the effect that may or may not have had on the players. So we'll probably know pretty soon how much of an impact that kind of temperature is going to have, or if it's going to be impactful at all. But I've definitely, like, when looking at my draft picks, just been looking firstly at players I think are going to start, and fixtures where I think defensively or offensively in those first match. Just to be honest with you, I only really focused on the first fixture, because if you look at how the tournament works, you can win a card pretty much for entering any of the global specials. You'll win like another card, and you don't need to finish that high to get a star or a tier 1. So where the stars and the tier 1s are the expensive draft picks, I think if you can get sides out, and if you do play the normal SORARE game as well, and you're entering with your rares and limiteds and super rares, chances are you could end up at the end of every round of matches with like 2 or 3 cards to use in the next round. So I've pretty much like just based my thinking on, let me get a team together that should all start, forwards that have a good like attacking fixture, defenders who should keep a clean sheet in that first game, and then hopefully bag yourself like a Messi or a Neymar or someone for that next round of games that you can't afford in the draft right now, because they look, tier 0s and tier 1s should be pretty obtainable for most of us. And, at worst case, tier 2s and tier 3s just for entering a team in those tournaments. So for me, like there are a couple of entries in my first like match week, which maybe have only 2 or 3 players that even have a match in the Super Rare League. But if I can finish in like the top 80%, I'll at least win myself a global cup card that I can use in the next round. So in terms of like tactics, I haven't really thought that much about like the heat or anything like that just yet. I've just purely been looking at the gameplay and like how to play the game. And this is what I've been kind of communicating with friends of mine who are not familiar with SORARE, is like just try and concentrate on getting yourself 5 players, and making sure that you win another card for the next round of games. But yeah, I don't know if either of you have had any different sort of tactics when it came to that initial draft, or how you've been looking at how you might maybe rotate those drafts into the second weeks, and the third weeks. Because I think we get another draft, don't we, before in the knockout stages. I think we get to pick another 4 cards. So it wasn't even too much about thinking who's going through. It was like, get a few players that should start, get a solid 5 that should definitely start every game. And then there was a couple, I think I was looking at Ecuador. I picked up Casado and Hincapi from Ecuador in my draft, because I fancy them to get a result or 2 in the groups, pick up some good points. I think Hincapi playing a more central role will be a good look for him. I think he's a great player. I like him a lot. I think he's 10 points. So he wasn't the cheapest option, but for goalkeeper-wise, I've gone with Alisson and Tanny. Tanny's 6 points. He's not going to play a game. That doesn't matter. But then I've got I think I might even already have a Tanny common, so he's not even going to be of use to me after. But yeah, I think one solid goalkeeper was the play there. Alisson should play every game for Brazil unless he gets injured, in my opinion. And then I've decided to go with like the stack, the old sandwich stack that we've mentioned on here before. I've gone for an attacking Argentina stack, defensive Brazil stack, and then in the middle I've got the meat in the sandwich, so to speak, is Musiala at Germany, who I fancy to have a massive tournament. I think he's going to be the breakout star of this one.
But do you think he gets the minutes?
Yeah, he's going to play.
I think he'll start. I think he'll start every game.
Him and Muller in the 9 and 10 positions. I believe will be the lineup.
I think so too.
Muller as well at World Cup could be how many people do you think are actually going to pick Muller? But he could score 5 or 6, man. He
looks good value. World Cup. He looks good value when you compare him to other forwards at like the big sides. He looks like a decent, valuable pickup, and yeah, I think he will start probably all of the group games. You know, like unless he picks an injury up, I'd expect to see him as like their focal point there. Especially now, you know, like they've got like, I mean, there's Havertz there, but Havertz. I think it'll be Havertz or Muller in that position. I think you've got Musiala, Sané, and Gnabry maybe playing behind either Muller or Havertz up top. That's kind of how I see it. But you know, I think that Muller could potentially play in that Musiala
and
role.
Moukokos in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it's tough, but I just think Musiala's been too good this season for him to not, and he's been getting minutes at the national side already as well. I think he's a slightly riskier play, but even in a side like Germany, you put Musiala on, he should make a difference as well. And even if he gets 30, 40 minutes, I'd expect, you know, some goal involvement there. So I put him in. But then I'm hoping I win, like, if I can pick up a Neymar or a Messi or a Harry Kane or something from that first round of rewards, then my forward kind of dilemma will be fixed. I've gone for Lisandro Martinez from Argentina.
So that.
Have you got him as well, yeah?
I love a bit of Lautaro.
Lautaro, sorry, I said Lisandro then, didn't I? Yeah. Lautaro Martinez. Yeah, and I went for Rodrigo de Paul from Argentina as well. I went for him.
Nice.
That's where I'm at. I keep looking at it and go to change it and then don't. I'm like, nah.
I've changed mine like 7 times already.
I've gone to change it nearly every day and not changed it once. I look at it all the time and I'm like, I just can't get past that selection at the moment. Who you guys got? Anyone different? Has anyone gone with any curveballs? Are there any unusual?
I don't think I've gone with many curveballs. I'm gambling on the Dutch goalkeeper situation because I like their group.
Oof.
So I really think it's a coin flip, to be honest. I mean, the one thing I'm sort of banking on is that before the lock, because they're in Group A, we're going to know who's playing in goal, so I can just pick the one that's playing in goal. Do you know what I mean? Like, they play one of the first games, so like, and it kicks off 1 hour before the first game, which is the Qatar game, right? And I think they're on second. So I'd like to think that we would know who the goalkeeper is going to be by the time we have the lock. So at the minute, I think Pasveer is going to be in goal because he's played the last 2 friendlies. They kept clean sheets in those games and he's got the number 1 jersey. Though Van Gaal has come out today and said that the number 1 jersey doesn't mean anything, but, you know, who knows what Van Gaal's doing. And then I think Timber is like one of the value picks of the tournament because he's like a lock to start at right centre back for Holland. And he's like 5 less than Van Dijk and 2 less than Ake. So I've gone for Pasveer and Timber. I would really like to have Musiala because I'm with you, Stish. I think he's going to be like one of the breakout player, of, like basically the young player of the tournament or whatever. Ooh. But I can, because I've gone for Pasveer and Timber, who only cost 20 points between them, and I'm a big fan of like the 3 shitters and 5 smashers sort of tactic. Then I can afford to have De Bruyne, Mbappe, and Messi as like the other 3 players.
Oh, very nice.
So I don't really like. I would love to have Musiala, but I'm basically replacing either Mbappe or Messi with Musiala, which doesn't seem worth it or right.
I think that's
if I could have like Van Dijk instead of Timber, I might do that, but I just don't think it does. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I think that's how I'm going, but we'll see.
I like that.
I like what you did, Josh. I reckon it's not a bad idea. I was trying to get players that maybe we don't expect or we don't know, and so I went the gold side from Australia and trying to see who's had, because the season is on as well for the past 2 months now in Australia, and who's kind of like where is their issue in Australia, and the issue is up front with Australia, and they'll score goals because the way they play, they're pretty alright on set piece. So I got one that is completely unknown, Jason Cummings, because
I was going to say Cum Dog.
Yeah, exactly, the Cum Dog, because he literally just came out like last year, this year playing okay in the A League, and also because getting a guy like him allowed me to get Mbappe, De Bruyne, and Kimmich in the team. So with those 3, I was like, okay, I can't go wrong there. And then I'll look into it. I got Unai Simon as a keeper because it should be all right. And kind of like what Stish was saying, he's playing Costa Rica to start with. So like the first game should be sorted, and then there's Germany. But at the second keeper, I got Pantemis, and Pantemis, sorry. And I feel like with Canada, you never know. Like they think that they have a starting keeper, but they always change. I don't think Pantemis is probably the third one, but yeah, just for him to kind of be there. The defender is the one that I'm struggling with. Like right now, I got Nuno Mendes on, but I'm obviously never going to be happy with 2 PSG players in my team. So I'll have to do something about that. But yeah, I did it at the beginning of the week, and then I looked again, and I was like, I need to find the right time. Like tomorrow, I got a day off work. I'm gonna find the right time to look again at the squads and all the injuries and who I'm going to, because I wanted to get like maybe a Spanish defender, but they're changing so much. Like I like Inigo, but I don't know if he's going to really play above Pau Torres and Laporte. So I'll just dig into it a little bit. But yeah, Jordan Cummings is probably going to score at least once against Tunisia. So he'll get me some points somewhere for his, I think his value at 6 or something like that.
For anyone who's not familiar, Jason Cummings is like Scottish, and like he went a little bit viral a few years ago for like, he did a video and he was doing like WWE wrestling in the changing room in his pants with one of his teammates, and he was calling himself Cum Dog and all that, and he's did some other kind of funny stuff, if you know what I mean. But he's nationalised for Australia, and you know, but I don't know if I'd go as far as say the guy's a talisman, you know, but he's one of those characters that, you know, people can get behind when he's, you know, on your team, as it were, you know. So I think that could be I think that kind of pick, Jeremy, in like individual match days could be wee clutch ones that gets you from being 250th to being 120th, or you know, whatever it might be, kind of thing. So I can dig that, especially if you can get guys like that on low points. I think that's always good fun, rather than just the throwaway guys on low points. Like when you guys are talking about goalkeepers, my cheap goalkeeper I got was Sean Johnson. So I think he is number 2 for America, and I don't even think that Matt Turner's nailed on for number 1. You know, so I think I might even sneak my way into having 2 number 1 keepers as an outside shot. And on goalkeepers, I was doing a wee thing there. I just wanted to put this out there to everyone thinking about Holland and goalkeepers and whatever, right? Louis van Gaal, in case any of you have forgotten, subbed his goalkeeper for a penalty shootout. Right?
He'll do that again.
This guy will sub a keeper at half. He'll do anything. So if any of you want to do that, then good luck to you. Charge on.
He will, like, he's taken Nopper as the penalty goalkeeper. Like he's like 6'8" and has like a 7.5 foot wingspan and like saves penalties for fun. So yeah, like if they ever goes to penalties, he will sub Nopper on. Like, there's no doubt about that. But
I've got his limit.
Yeah, I do.
But he's he's not going to score points in a penalty shootout. That's the problem.
No,
unless they introduce something for the World Cup. But at the moment, they're not scored, are they? They're not scored as penalty saves or anything like that. So it's not much use having a Nopper for this if he's going to be that guy, unfortunately. Would have been great.
Nice
100. Yeah.
So, Quinny, who have you gone for?
Well, I changed mine up a little bit. I've not changed it up too much since the first time around. Like, goalkeeper, I went with Emi Martinez because I just think, like, out of all the goalkeeper choices, he is the biggest potential hero of a goalkeeper. Like, you guys probably seen the quotes, but when they won the Copa America, he was quoted as saying, "I don't really care that I won this. I'm just really happy Messi won it." You know, like, you know, and he has like a real, you know, because he started his career's flourished so late in his footballing career, if that makes sense. He's only became a number 1 like 2 minutes ago, and you know, he's late 20s or whatever. So, you know, Argentina, I expect to get to the final, and I think, like, yeah, I just think he's a real hero potential of a goalkeeper. You know, in defence, I was so determined to play Theo Hernandez because I just think out of all the defenders there, he is easily the most 100 capable, in my opinion, if he plays. But listening to Jeremy confirm all the other noise I've been hearing, I've swapped Theo for Lucas, and I don't think Lucas is 100 capable, but I don't think he's too far behind. De Bruyne, the main man, and then up top, I revealed Lautaro earlier on. Cheap man's Messi, basically. Like, Messi will score goals, but Messi will probably assist more than he'll score.
Yeah.
You know? And he loves Lautaro as well, so that's all good. Main man for France is always Griezmann. And again, when I was talking about the sub thing earlier on, when I look at the France rotation, or the France squad, particularly before the Nkunku injury, but you could see, you know, let's just say the suspected front 3 or front 4, if you like, would maybe be something like Mbappe, Benzema, Griezmann. I don't know, maybe Ousmane Dembele starts on the right. I don't know how they would maybe, Jeremy will know better than me. That's why I'm cautious of saying anything for certain.
Deschamps will put Giroud before he puts anybody else, I reckon.
Really? Do you think? Okay, so what I thought basically was Griezmann 10, Benzema top, and then a left and a right of like Dembele and Mbappe, especially if they're going 4 centre-backs. I thought that would probably get even more attacking players on.
It's going to be a flat midfield three, isn't it, Jeremy? I think.
It's going
to be like
I think
Rabiot, Tchouaméni, and another mid.
His main idea will be the flat three, like Tchouaméni, Fofana, Rabiot, and then just Benzema, Mbappe, Griezmann. But Benzema doesn't play the first game. Yeah. Because of the injury, I reckon he only comes in for the second game. So I think he starts with Giroud, Mbappe, and Griezmann because Mbappe loves playing next to Giroud because Giroud doesn't play where Mbappe plays. But with Griezmann, you have a great shot, and if you have Griezmann and Lucas Hernandez, those two fucking love each other. They combine together so well. And Lucas Hernandez only play really high when he's got Griezmann next to him because he knows those two will press together. So those two together in a team, I think they're like the best defender-attacker combo, if that's a thing, on SORARE that you can have next to each other.
I'm really glad I fell into that then by accident. So, and then in midfield, I went De Bruyne because how can I not want a common De Bruyne when this tournament finishes? Number one. Number two, obviously, I think he'll go really far in the tournament. I think he'll kill it. I think De Bruyne is one of these few players, especially in midfield, that I think is like a one-man operation. Like Belgium are a great team and all the rest of it. But I think De Bruyne could probably get a team of maybe a slightly smaller standing quality than Belgium to probably the quarterfinals or something because dead balls, never mind open play, he does not miss a pass. He sees passes that don't even exist and all the rest of it. So I think he's a no-brainer. And then for I've got a 6-point midfielder who I think is the best 6-point player on the draft. You ready for this?
Go on, Sanis.
I'll take that silence as a yes. Takumi Minamino for midfield is 6 points. He is the penalty taker for Japan. He is one of their best players, their main players, blah, blah, blah. You all know who he is. Liverpool, Monaco, Salzburg and everything else. He's 6 points, so even the one game you think Japan are going to do well in, if you maybe need another player to come in that game week, maybe you've got a guy that maybe has rotation bait, maybe picks up a niggle or a knock or something, or whatever, for 6 points, because you are going to be picking up 5 and 6 point players in your draft. Like I think Minamino, if you've got a midfield spot, like he's the best one there. And in the very final spot, I was left with 9 points, and how could I not pick a Celtic player? So I took Cameron Carter-Vickers, because again, why wouldn't I want a comment of that as well?
I did wonder if he was going to have like a full-blown Celtic stack with like JJ, Carter-Vickers.
Well, like I said earlier on, actually before we were recording, the 4 Celtic players going to the tournament, you could draft them all and still have good budget left for Messi and co, if you know what I mean, because Maeda, Damoy, Vickers and Juranovic are all 8 points, 9 points or less. They're all very cheap, So if you did want to do that, then there wouldn't be anything stopping you. But nah, I think Minamino's too good not to have, just in case I need him. And Vickers, I think I'll have a good tournament if he plays.
I think Minamino's a great shout. Another good 6-pointer that I was tempted by was Szymanski in Poland, because I think he's managed to bed himself in a little bit more there now, and he picked up some decisive actions in their recent friendlies that obviously aren't scored on SORARE, but he looks to me. I'd be surprised if he's not in the starting lineup. He could not be in the starting lineup, but I would be surprised if he wasn't. I think from the way he's been playing, and he's 6 points, and I thought that was a good value pick potentially.
I would agree. I'd love to get your guys' opinion on this, because when I was looking at the draft, I think it was last night, Lewandowski at 14 points. Right now, I'm actually a big kind of denier of Lewandowski especially for Poland. Right, you can't deny his statistics and his quality and whatever. Right, but he's yet to do it for Poland, and that's kind of the last thing I've got on his hit list anyway. For me, no one's really talking about him, and like he's not had the most grueling last 12 months or whatever. Coupled with your Szymanski, like I don't think the Poland squad has been as good ever. Like when you've seen Lewandowski take Poland to the Euros, like they've got guys with the greatest respect, Josh, they've got guys from like Hull in their squad and stuff like that and whatever, And at least now I think like their starting 11, I think it is like decent quality. Josh is about to run away now. But I think the Poland squad could actually be a bit of a surprise. And Lewandowski, he's going to do everything for them, in terms of in the final third. And at 14 points, along with Szymanski at 6, man, that's 20 points on 2 potentially real quality players.
Yeah.
I think Lewandowski can score a few on this one. Like you said, I think it's his. I was talking about with the Australian boys that I write with yesterday, and they were like, "Oh, who do you think is going to be Golden Boot?" And I was like, maybe Lewandowski, even if it's only for the first 3 games. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like 3-4 in there.
I've not really looked at him as much, just because I didn't fancy Poland for the World Cup in the World Cup in their fixtures.
The group's not that scary.
Yeah, I was just having a look at their group.
It's something doesn't sit quite right for me about their group. I don't know what it is, but they haven't been as appealing to me in the draft as other teams.
Sure.
Saudi Arabia is a dark horse.
I think Mexico might surprise a few people.
I think that's a very open group. I think like Saudi Arabia, they got this coach who's obviously French. Hervé Renard is his name, and he's like wherever he's coach, he's being called the magician because he just does things that you don't expect in the Asian.
Was he like a Cameroon manager before or something like that?
It was
Was he like an African nations manager?
He did a couple of nations in Africa. I think he did the Ivory Coasts back when they won the AFCON, if not mistaken. And then he did a bit of in France as well. Hervé Renard. And he's this like good-looking 50-year-old dude. So everybody kind of like when he comes in his city, wears shirts that are a little bit too tight for himself. But he did really good in the Asian qualifiers. And he surprised everyone because there's nobody known in Saudi Arabia. But they're a strong defensive unit, and they got this like lightning quick striker that actually did all right against Australia and against Japan as well. I think it's a weirdly open group, but to be honest, I think Mexico is going to crash. Just the team that they have, they're just very inconsistent, I think, in how they do it, and I didn't see anybody that I thought was going to be. We talked about it before, the Dani Alves of the team who can like put them back together maybe in the middle of the young squad. So it's an open group.
Yeah, I'm just now looking at my sort of like initial draft and what I'm going to put out that first game week, and obviously like I feel really strongly about Musiala and how he's playing this season. I'm just looking at like his minutes recently for Germany, and my other options was Caicedo and Hincapié for Ecuador, who have Qatar in their first game. And it throws a spanner in the works because as much as I fancy Musiala to have a great tournament, him versus Japan is a much more difficult fixture, in my opinion, than Ecuador for Qatar. And I for that extra position, I can choose between Musiala, Caicedo, and Hincapié. I mean, what would your advice be on this
Qatar is going to bribe their way through. Be careful.
Yeah, I mean, what would you do? Do you pick Musiala in this first fixture, or do you go with an Ecuador good all-round score, potential decisive? I don't know.
I'll go Musiala.
I think Ecuador are slept on, to be honest with you, like for this. So especially in regards to the Qatar game, like I think Jeremy's right. There is a distinct possibility that some dodgy refereeing decisions could go in Qatar's favour, because like even though like not to jump on the whole Qatari bandwagon or whatever, but see, even if you cast your mind all the way back for any that are old enough to the 2002 World Cup, South Korea got to the semi-finals, and if you remember that tournament, the quarterfinals and the knockout round, they got some crazy stuff go their way, and they eliminated Spain and somebody else, so like home field advantage in the World Cup, like stereotypes aside, like it does happen, home nations do of their own accord, and maybe other things go in their favour, all respect to South Korea and all the rest of it as well, but is it a shock if the home nation gets 3 points somehow in the group? I'm not too sure, but I think on paper, I think Qatar should get battered.
Different sport and all, but they've hosted the Handball World Cup, I think like 4 or 5 years ago, out of the blue, and France is like the best team at handball. And Qatar won the World Cup. We didn't know any players. A few of them were playing in Spain or whatever, that they quickly naturalized, and they didn't do that for football. But they're a weird nation, but they're a nation that wants to win. So yeah, I'm surprised that nobody is going for any Danish talent.
Yeah, I did have a look
Skov Olsen,
at
no
the Danish
Damsgaard.
ones.
Like there's some good players there, and Tunisia is nowhere.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
bad.
I was having a look at Højbjerg for my mid spot, but I could afford De Bruyne, so I didn't.
No,
The
I didn't go.
reservations I have on Denmark is very similar to what you guys were saying just there about Poland in terms of that group being weirdly, kind of built, because like, yeah, on the face of it, Denmark should beat Tunisia and Australia, but like it is the World Cup. Tunisia have got a relative home, we're talking about climates and friendlies and all that kind of stuff, and I think Tunisia and Australia have that in their favour. Denmark technically great, of course. Their starting 11 will be amongst the most accomplished, I think, probably in the tournament. But would I be surprised if Denmark finished third? Probably not. That's what I just don't even look at them for that reason.
Yeah, I think the problem for me with Denmark was how unpredictable their sort of starting lineups tend to be in tournaments. I remember watching them in the Euros and being like, I don't know who many of these players are, and they always have like a breakthrough star, like I think it was like Damsgaard or someone like that who kind of comes out of nowhere. And all of the players that I'm familiar with in the Danish team, I just felt were a little bit overpriced because of maybe the scores they put up in their club sides. And I just find that was what put me off a little bit. I did have a little look at Denmark because they're always pretty well organised at tournaments, but just that air of like uncertainty around who may or may not start. That was what put me off more than anything, because I think I was looking at Højbjerg and Christian Eriksen and a few of the defensive options, but I just think for the cost that was put. So I think if you look at the sort of the points they give to the players across the board, they tend to kind of like weight them a little bit higher if they're in a side that's expected to do well in their group as well. And I think that maybe some of the scores or the points needed for those Danish players were just overshot a little bit for me. Maybe whoever's like decided on that SORARE fancies Denmark a bit more than some of the teams that I fancied in other. I think that's why I kind of like levitated to Ecuador as a potential dark horse where I saw a bit of value. And I think with some of the Danish options I was looking at, I didn't get that same feeling that I was getting bang for my buck, and that was kind of what put me off a little bit.
I like Joachim Mahaile as a defender option.
A lot of people must be listening to SORARE Odyssey.
Oh, I hadn't listened to SORARE Odyssey, but yeah, I like him. He's got much better output for Denmark than he does for Atlanta.
He was great before he moved there.
He was really good in the Euros.
Yeah, he was good in the Euros.
Yeah.
He was a good card to have back then because he was on the platform on the Euros tournament too.
He'll play left or right, but he'll what's his name, the coach, Hjulman or something like that. He'll sub the other one. I think it's Vass and Christensen, and he'll put Maele. He'll slot him in whether it's at the left or right, but he'll put him in. And I think Skov Olsen, the guy who's at Bruges right now, will play as well, just because Hjulman, he's the one who revealed Skov Olsen back when he was at Nordjylland in Denmark. So there's a bit of that going on as well for them as well. But yeah, I kind of agree that they're probably a bit of a price. I mean, they beat France twice in the past 4 months, and they did so well at the Euro, and the story is there to back them up.
I would only look at Eriksen, because I think if they do anything, Eriksen's guaranteed to be in amongst it, whereas everyone else, maybe they're subbed off, maybe they're subbed on, maybe it's not their match. But if Denmark do anything, guaranteed Eriksen's involved.
Yeah, that's what you want. I think you've been looking at all the players in all of the squads, like who is like the sort of, what's the spine of that team, and can I afford a player of one of those players? And in the first draft, that was all I was really interested in, apart from the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper was like, who can I get this cheap so I can spend more on the outfielders, and just hope that I don't, that Alisson doesn't get an injury in those first 3 games, because he'll be my keeper until I can do that second draft, and then hopefully try and pick another goalkeeper that should go the distance, I guess. Be interesting to see how that draft works, whether they reprice players based on their first 3 games performance, that kind of thing. Because if they don't, there'll be some bargains. There'll be some players that no one knew about that have scraped their way into the last 16, and you can pick them up for like 5 points or something like that. and then people will be picking up the Messis and this 5-point guy that's like put up a big score or something. So it'd be interesting to see.
I was going to say that when you said that earlier on, that we get to draft 4 more players, because what I heard was we get 50 credits at the end of it, and I expected them maybe to reprice things. Did you see 4 cards somewhere, or is that?
I'm pretty sure I read that there's a second draft in the last 16 after the knockout stage for four more players.
Oh, cool. So maybe that's.
I may have missed. I'd need to go back. I pretty much just like looked over it quickly before I started doing drafts, so I might have that wrong. So don't take it as gospel. But I'm pretty sure I read something along the lines of you get another draft, which made me think I just need to try and draft at least like 5 or 6 players that make it through the group, so that I can get another 4 that should hopefully see the tournament out with. That's why I kind of went Argentina, Brazil. I just fancy both of those to go like decent through the knockout stages. But yeah, hopefully I can pick some players from another nation that I expect to do well. I think Portugal was a tough one as well, because I think they've got a lot of stars. Similarly to Denmark, in that like there's a lot of quality in that Portugal side, and I think Portugal could go quite far as well, given the sort of like the group and the draw that they may or may not have based on the knockouts after. And I was reading about the EA Sports kind of like do like a they every year they kind of like generate the World Cup knockout stages, group stages based on FIFA. And they've got every World Cup winner right for the last 3 World Cups, and they generated an Argentina win for this one. And I was looking at like, well, how have they worked out the games? What happens in the knockout stages? And I think that their model sees Portugal getting to the final. I think beating Brazil in the semi.
Wow!
And I mean, they've got the individuals to do it. If they can get that team to gel and keep everyone fit, and who knows? But I think this Ronaldo kind of shitstorm that's kicked off might have an impact a little bit.
Yeah, not good timing for them.
It's awful, isn't it? I think it always seems to happen.
I seem to think with João Cancelo, but I don't get why he cares. Like, I understand Bruno Fernandes being sore about it, but
the media spun that a bit. I think if you watch the full clip, Cancelo gets really like frustrated in training and like smashes the ball away and stuff. And then Ronaldo goes over to like try and speak to him like as like a, like G him up or whatever, and he's like still really annoyed. So I don't think he was like annoyed at Ronaldo at all. I think it's just a bit of a media spin
at himself.
Okay.
To try and like put that up. I've just double checked Stish on the Medium article. You do get the opportunity to add 4 new player cards to your initial squad of 8 on the following dates. So it's after the round of 16, before the quarterfinals, and before the semis. Before the round of 16, before the quarters and before the semis. So we're
concentrating on that first group.
There about 50 points or anything?
Groups only, yeah.
It doesn't say anything about a point limit, Quinny, no, but it does say the opportunity to add 4 new player cards. So whether the opportunity is like you have to split your points, I'm not sure. But
I read that part as that we get 4 cards as we go. Does it specifically say redraft there when you're reading that? Sorry.
You don't. It doesn't look like you redraft. You just add them, so your roster gets bigger for the Global Cup.
I think you're earning them as you go. I think you're pulling them from where you finish.
Maybe.
I'm looking now as well. Like if you look at the gameplay situation as well, like there's 4 tournaments open in each match day that allow you to potentially win more cards as well. So you've got the Global Cup, the International Special, the International Special win, the International Special win, Rare, Super Rare, and Limited. And I'm not 100% sure, but is that prize pool growing with the amount of entries? Because the International Special Limited currently has 5,828 global like special cards in the pool. And there's 6,183. So almost everyone is going to get a card. And the same goes for the Super Rare division, which has 72 for 82 entrants. And in the Rare,
everyone.
It's almost everyone. Is that just that it's not caught up to everyone who's entered yet? But like anyone who enters that will get another card. Is that how it works?
I think because the top are getting limited cards and everybody else is getting common cards. But I think every single
if you open up the prize pool, sorry to interrupt you there, Jeremy, but if you open up the prize pool, 30% to 100% of entries will get a tier 3 custom series.
Okay.
So even if you enter even if you finish last, you'll get a tier 3.
5
So
DNPs,
this is a case of if you can get DNPs into these squads, which I don't think you can. I've tried it already, to be honest with you. I don't think they have to have world. They have. I've got Sean Johnson in one of these as a goalkeeper. Doesn't matter because he's just a World Cup eligible guy. So I think you just need to have them clocked on the system as being playing.
It needs to match up with the Opta data because I've just lobbed in International Special Super Rare because I had players that were there, but one of them, the only mid I've got is Josip Misic, but he's not in the Croatian squad, so it doesn't seem to have quite properly updated, if you ask me.
Yeah, I keep looking at mine and it's going back. It keeps going like draft, so I don't know if like players are getting booted out as they're like not in the squads and stuff. But a lot of my players who are not actually in the squad look like they've got a fixture, but I know they don't, because they're not in the squad. But I just realised I'm down.
Get them in, man.
I'm going to definitely do
that.
I'm doing. I need to sort this out.
You were talking about Portugal. I think their coach is their issue as well.
Oh, really?
They're not going to be the team who's going to win like 4-3 every game because they're going to win only 1-0. So
he's really conservative.
Portugal is a good idea. But offensively, he's just frustrating, Fernando Santos.
Ronaldo as well. He's like 14, 15 points. And, if you back him to be Ronaldo, which we're talking about, I was mentioning De Bruyne, Eriksen put in this category as well, the man that can help the team get over the line. He's definitely got that in him. And, this will be his last World Cup, surely. He's not going to come back at 41, is he? So I wouldn't put it past him, to be honest. But, so maybe Portugal have got a good shout. But when I did the tournament tree thing, I think in the quarters, they need to play Spain or Germany or something like that. And I couldn't see them getting by that personally, because I just think some of these European teams have got, I think, like Spain, I think Spain beat Germany. I think that's a kind of bogey team situation there. I think Spain traditionally do quite okay against the Germans. And equally, I don't think Portugal beat Spain or Germany normally. Not that comes into anything, of course, but, in terms of bogey teams and these types of situations, when I look at that, I can't see Portugal getting by some of these teams, but maybe that's as well. When I look at Group H, I know somebody's about to come in there. Sorry. When I look at Group H, I don't think Ghana or Uruguay are to be wrote off in the head-to-head matches with Portugal. And if Portugal don't get a certain amount of points, that they could finish third also. To make an obvious statement.
I don't fancy Spain. I'm going to put it out there. There's something doesn't sit quite right. I don't think this is a classic Spain squad. I think they got good individuals. I think up top they're extremely weak compared to other nations, and
fair.
I think they lack a little bit in the middle of that centre back. I think that they're exposed a bit there, and I think if a big team's going to have a bad tournament, my money would be on Spain. I don't know about anyone else, but that there's something just not.
I fancy Spain.
You fancy Spain, yeah?
Yeah,
I mean, they're great individually. There's something looks missing. I
don't even think because of their individuality. I think because of Luis Enrique. I think a lot of teams, we've just said that a few times now. Belgium is De Bruyne, France is Mbappe or Benzema, Brazil is Neymar, and you go to Spain, and Spain is Luis Enrique because the team doesn't make sense. The two best goal scorers of La Liga haven't been called. He's got some youth in the middle that, sure, they're great, but they're very young. For what you ask them, he's got Koke, who's kind of tired, but he still plays him. We were saying he was going to put Ferran Torres up front. He doesn't even play with his club, but he's going to put him. He's got his weird choices, but I think he's built that team for a couple of years now, a bit more even, to kind of play his way. And I think it's going to be a bit of the apology of the shit coach that World Cup, because Deschamps, Fernando Santos, and Luis Enrique, those aren't coaches that make football pretty, but they just go for wins. So I fancy Spain because they're not going to be the great Spain that we saw 10 years ago, but they're going to be, I reckon, a bit more efficient and a bit more calculated. And I think they'll have no issue against Costa Rica and Japan. And against Jamaica, they're going to struggle, but I reckon they'll get themselves out like that. Thanks to this, I think Brazil is the big one in trouble because of their defense.
Really?
Yeah, Marquinhos is not Marquinhos has not ramped up to that World Cup, and I think it's, I don't know, and the little bit that I've seen them play at the Copa America and all that, I think there's a bit of a It won't take much for Neymar to lose it, the midfield to not play well together, and I think defensively, I'm actually I don't know why he doesn't put Militao all the time defensively, but I think it's I think they're a bit not as good as they should be, as in they're a goal away from crumbling or that kind of thing. They're not in a very, very complicated group, so they should be okay there, but I don't see them going too far. And I'm trying to make sure it's not my hate of Neymar. Trying to make sure it's not that.
I think they've got 3 below average teams, but no really bad teams in their group, if you know what I mean. Like Cameroon, Serbia, and Switzerland. Like Serbia and Switzerland could be
Cameroon will be terrible.
Stalwart, yeah, all right, fair.
I can say that. Cameroon will be terrible.
Great. But they're not I don't know, Cameroon aren't
they will be terrible.
Tunisia or Iran.
No, I promise you, Cameroon will be one of the worst teams at this thing.
All right, fair enough.
I've got that.
Maybe they smash Cameroon then. But Serbia and Switzerland could be quite stalwart defensively against Brazil. So I sort of get that. I think personally, I think the flop will probably be England. And I don't really. I think Belgium will probably get out of the group. I don't really like their aging squad.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Martinez has said Hazard's still going to have a big part to play for them, and he's hardly played any football at all.
I think that's a bad thing, but really.
You what? Sorry, mate.
I don't think that's that terrible a thing, really, in this situation.
Maybe not, I guess. But
my problem with Belgium is actually the young defence.
Is it going to be a young defence though?
Quite shaky, in terms of the international stage. There's no Vertonghen and Alderweireld are still there, of course, but far from their peak at this stage. And then who's the third man?
Yeah, it's going to be Alderweireld, Vertonghen, and De Bast. That is who I'm expecting to start. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't really fancy him defensively. Obviously, one thing they do. No, I don't think so. No.
So who plays up top for them, do you reckon?
Mertens or Origi or something? Batshuayi.
Yeah, maybe Batshuayi. Yeah. But I just don't think they're going to be too strong.
I just think if you haven't got world class up top, you're going to find it difficult to beat those big defenders and the good teams. And that's where Spain fails for me, is what Morata and Ferran Torres up top does not cause problems for many defenders, I don't think. And I think with Belgium, how good the midfield and some of the individuals on that side are, like you said, I think there may be they missed that window of opportunity. The golden era is starting to age a bit, and you haven't got an all like a Lukaku firing on all cylinders. And I don't know that. Then I'm not as excited about them as I was in the last World Cup. Where I fully expected them to do really well, but this time around I don't. And but I think that about a lot of clubs, a lot of international sides in this World Cup. There's not. I mean, for me, I'm looking at Argentina, Brazil, France probably is the favourites. And a lot of that is down to individual talent and quality in sort of areas. And I think France have a lot of great defensive centre-back options. And for me, I like Tchouaméni and Camavinga as a double pivot. Maybe that's too defensive, I don't know. But I don't think a lot of teams are going to know how to deal with those two, breaking up play in the midfield in the knockout stages. I just think that's an incredibly difficult midfield to play against. And I don't think a lot of other teams in the tournament will deal or cope with that. In Brazil, you've got great forwards. Not many defences in the tournament will be able to deal with any of their forwards. But whereas I look at some of the other teams, like England, granted as well, I think our sort of positions or our sections of the pitch, if you look at defence, midfield, attack, barring maybe Harry Kane, Bukayo Saka and Phil Foden up top, I think our midfield and our defence is dealt with by most clubs, most teams. I just think our forward line is the only possible threat we have. So with Gareth Southgate, who likes to set up quite defensively, you're not actually exploiting our biggest weapon on anyone by attacking with one of the best attacks in the tournament. And I don't think we're going to set up to do that. And I think the reason for that is you look at our squad We've got about 57 centre-backs in our team, in our squad. Why are you taking that many? The only reason you would take that many centre-backs is if you plan on playing 3 at the back with wing-backs. And if we do that, we can't play 3 up top. So I'm set up for disappointment already when it comes to England. And I kind of agree with Josh.
Yeah.
There's a good chance we are the flop of this tournament, unfortunately.
He's not going to play Saka either. Like, he's going to play Sterling, which is just criminal.
On form, he's got to play for me, Saka.
Yeah, I despise Raheem Sterling's footballing ability, to be honest. But
on form, what would you say? Saka, Kane, Foden, front three?
Yeah, I'd have Saka, Kane. But again, like, I think he'll probably play 3 at the back. Like that, when we did well last Euros and he played 3 at the back with Rice and Phillips holding against, like, bad national sides, it just seems criminal to me. Like, we've got arguably some of the best attacking talent in the world, and then, like, you're playing 7 defensive players. I just don't understand the bloke. He's just doesn't work for me. But yeah, I think Stish is absolutely right. He'll set up very defensively, and we won't be able to make use of our good attacking.
I'll be quietly pleased if he is going to play 3 at the back. If his holding mids, his 2 midfielders in the centre, or if he goes for like 5-3-2, if you like. If he sets up, I mean, defenders is probably going to be Stones, Maguire. I don't think Walker's going to be fit for the first game, is he? But he's probably
if Walker isn't fit, he probably won't play 5 at the back then.
No. Hopefully he goes 4-3-3. But, one thing I am looking forward to is Jude Bellingham in this tournament. I'm expecting to see a lot more of. He offers a lot more than Calvin Phillips and Rice together, because I think they're both quite similar player. Whereas if he puts Rice next to Bellingham, he gives us a little bit more going forward than Calvin Phillips. And hopefully, if he does go Sterling instead of Saka, let's just hope that the Sterling from the Euros turns up and not the Chelsea Sterling that we've seen this season. Because he was pretty good in the Euros, and I'll take a performance like that out of him again. But on current form, I don't know how anyone could leave Saka out of the starting lineup personally. I think he's a great player.
Yeah, everything you say. I did the Value of Talent podcast with Harry and Feda, and I had England as my flop of the tournament. But on the Southgate thing, to play a wee bit of devil's advocate, if you look at Group B, I think when you make the draw, you could probably, as England, safely say none of those teams are likely to score 2 goals or more against us. Like, if you set up correctly, like, you could really force that issue to happen. And with the obvious talent available, like, as you were mentioning with Southgate earlier, tournament football, get the job done and progress. At the end of the day, everyone will be buzzing if you do progress and go far just on the results alone. Even that Russia run, even though it was spanking little teams all the way, everyone was still buzzing about it. So I'm pretty sure that'll be. But I fancy America to do well. I wouldn't be surprised. Equally, everything you guys have said, I wouldn't be surprised if England were third and America and Wales somehow ran out of this group and we're going for the tournament party. But equally on that kind of note as well, probably that. Actually, I just want to say one thing before I go to this, because we touched on it earlier. We were talking about it before recording. We spoke about Brazilian defence and then went away from it, right? But Dani Alves is at this tournament. I don't know how old he is. The guy is the most decorated footballer in world football history. And I think I have Brazil as my favourites to win it. I think Brazil will do win it. And I think him being in the squad raised some eyebrows, right? And he is old and whatever. But I seen him play for Barca last season, and he's not a million miles off it. He's been chilling out in Mexico for the last 6 months, be keeping himself in good nick and whatever. The Brazilian defence is on paper definitely not World Cup winning standard. Alexandro's past his peak, Tellez, Danilo. Also we're talking about Dani Alves as well, Marquinhos, Thiago Silva. How old is he? But I do think in these tournament situations as well, sometimes these old heads do get you across the line, and I hope Dani Alves appears at least twice in this tournament. I would hope to see him, and again, I don't know how cheap he is, but I would hope to see him in game 3 of the group to get his appearance if they're home and hosed, and equally again at some other stage in the tournament if they're into extra time or whatever, that kind of idea. I could see him being used again as the leader that helps get them over the line. Either Dani Alves, is there anyone else in that kind of mould that you guys are looking forward to seeing at this World Cup? Maybe a guy that is going to be his last tournament or anything like that?
Ochoa.
I can't be, of course, but Ochoa.
Guillermo Ochoa. Yeah.
He's like a
very good.
The evergreen, isn't he? He always plays well at the World Cup, and what is this? His 5th World Cup now? Is this his 5th one?
Man.
Could be,
He's one of only a few players who's played in 5, I think, if he plays in this World Cup. So, it'll be good to see him. He's still flying through the air. He's 78 years old now. Charlie, I did have his SORARE card until about a year ago. I let it go, but I wouldn't mind having that back in my gallery for the World Cup. I think he'll be a great addition to any team, and looking forward to seeing him for Mexico. Definitely, no one else really springs to mind for me, but Ochoa of Mexico feels like home watching him. It just kind of, this is like a nostalgia kick. It brings me back to the previous
like retro, even though it's not retro.
Exactly. Yeah. Just looking at him, I just think, yeah, I remember watching you about 15 years ago. Still watching you now.
Modric for me is the one. Modric, I like, as like a swan song.
Yeah.
He's 37 now. It seems a bit weird saying that because he's still like so dominant, really, for Real Madrid, I guess. But
it's just his birth certificate, eh? Besides that, you wouldn't know it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I don't imagine he plays at another one. So yeah, it'd be nice to see him. As much as I don't like Croatia for what they did to us at the last one, it'd be nice to see him have a good one.
Yeah,
I was going to say Keylor Navas, but he's even playing. I mean, obviously he's cold.
I will be,
but
I think
he picked up a knock or something. Not with Paris, not too long ago, if I'm mistaken.
I think
I think he can. If Costa Rica does anything, that he'd be fantastic, and I think he's probably the most hard on by goalkeeper in the history of talented goalkeeper. Wherever he's been, they've replaced him when he was the best still. So I think it'll be a good shot for him if he can get a good competition. He's got a tough group though. I don't know what he can do to save the team by himself. But yeah, Spain, Germany, Japan. But yeah, it's definitely his last one. So hopefully he can do something.
What about you, Quinny? You got your eye on anyone?
Other than Dani Alves, I was just having a wee scroll through there. Probably the only other one that I would want to get a mention on this podcast is probably Luis Suarez. He's been drafted in for Uruguay. Uruguay are always a dark horse in every World Cup. Luis Suarez loves to be a headline maker and a match winner. Don't think he's a 90-minute guy at this stage. And again, Uruguay, I heard somebody talking about, some guy on Twitter said, Darwin Núñez, top goal scorer, 66-1. That might be something. And it's like, mate, Darwin Núñez, Maxi Gomez, Luis Suarez and Edison Cavani. It's like 2 pairs of the same people, and all they're going to do, because Cavani and Suarez are pensioners, they're just going to either mix and match or whatever they do, but none of those guys are going to play 90 minutes for the way Uruguay play and how they're going to deploy them. And subsequently, Suarez, I think, will get actually a good amount of minutes in this tournament, and is maybe not somebody anyone's ever mentioned for. But if Uruguay progress, Suarez is the kind of national hero, isn't he? So maybe a wee bit of Louis.
And Valverde in there as well. Put him in the mix and see, they could create something.
Yeah, I like Uruguay for the tournament.
Is Diego Godin in the squad? Did he make the final squad?
He is. Yeah, he is still.
I think all the usual suspects are there.
He's got to be 75 now, isn't he, Godin?
38 or something, man, at least. I think he got a card last year at Genoa or something like that.
Born in 86. So he's 36
years older than me.
Right?
Okay.
There is actually a 40-year-old that's going.
Is there?
Yes.
It's not Dani Alves?
It's not. It is a Mexican goalkeeper, but it's not Guillermo Ochoa.
Is it Talavera?
What's his name?
I've got him. I've got him in my teams, Talavera. He's actually a really good SO5 goalkeeper for the non-World Cup. Plays in his club football in Mexico and picks a lot of clean sheets up. And he was someone I tipped to all of my friends who were on the fence about paying out for a goalkeeper. I was like, get this guy. And they're like, he's 40. I'm like, he plays every week. I think he plays for Pumas.
Yeah, it's cheap, isn't he?
Yeah, he's dirt cheap.
Yeah, I think so. I had it at one point.
So yeah, he's in the squad. And I believe, from the looks of things, he's the eldest person going to the World Cup.
I was really surprised actually that Mexico didn't bring Carlos. What's his name? I forget. Acevedo. Yeah, he didn't make the squad. Surprised about that because he's been hotly tipped to be their next number one, and he's not even in the top 3 for the World Cup this year. They brought a lot of age.
He had pick up a year injury or something like that last year, and he missed almost a full season or something, and didn't come back from it or something like that. I was looking at it.
Yeah, he did come back. He's been in the Mexico squad a couple of times. But he had a good finish to his season. He started pretty poorly when he came back from injury, but a decent player, decent goalkeeper, a very Mexican goalkeeper, in the sense that he's like high flying, big saves, the classic like Campos style goalkeeper, quite like, you spot him with his like long hair, the hairband. Yeah, I'm gutted he's not going to be there, to be honest. I was really looking forward to seeing him. I was expecting maybe like when I picked him, I think I picked his card up 2 years ago when I first joined the platform, and I just thought this guy's going to be the Mexico keeper soon, and I'm surprised he's not still. But Ochoa's not putting his gloves down for anyone. I wouldn't be surprised if he is he announced international retirement or anything after this, like, or is Ochoa looking to carry on? Because it just doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down.
I actually thought the other Ochoa was supposed to be the heir apparent, the boy in America, because he turned Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the other Ochoa
Mexican.
Yeah, Araujo didn't make the squad either, which I was gutted about.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
I was
David Ochoa.
David Ochoa, him.
He hasn't been playing much this year, has he?
No, he like disappeared from his club, and then he's now at Rooney's team, and I think they've been mints for a while. But I think maybe I don't know. I think they've nationalised him, so maybe
he was playing
next World Cup. There will be an Ochoa in goals for Mexico.
Yeah.
The legacy will continue for the next 20 years.
It's half at home as well next World Cup, right? It's Mexico, America, and the US and Canada.
That probably, Jeremy, that's a great, probably the last nation I would probably want us to touch on, and we'll wrap this show up, but is Canada, right? Because we're talking about big teams earlier on. Who would you, I was actually going to come on to say this, like I did say England to flop, right? But as I was scrolling through the group having this chat with you guys, like I think Belgium cruised that group, right? But would I be surprised if Canada caused an upset with like Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Tejan Buchanan? They've got some like athletic, pacey, committed young, aspirational players, and I don't know. What do you think about Canada?
Too soon for them, I think.
Okay.
But I agree with you. On any given day, they could definitely cause an upset with those players. I just don't know if it's their time yet. But I would not be surprised if they did cause an upset at some point. Whether or not they get through the group, maybe another discussion. But yeah, I would fancy them to get a result in one of those games, maybe.
Tough group for them, I think. I think Morocco are probably going to be one of the better performing African teams.
Fair.
But yeah, I mean, they definitely could do. And, with the backline Belgium are going to have, Courtois might have to be on his game if he wants to stop him scoring. I think that could actually be a really high scoring group.
That's a good point.
Because, I think Canada are going to score goals, right? And I think Morocco are probably going to score goals. This is making me feel bad for having Livakovic as my goalkeeper in the rest. But yeah, I think it could be a high scoring group, that one. But yeah, no, I can certainly see them causing teams some problems. But yeah, maybe a bit like Stish. I think their group's maybe just slightly too big for them at this stage. Maybe a better chance in the next one.
Belgium and Croatia, it's experienced and they know how to get out of groups. So that's the hard one. But they could. Like I got Kamal Miller, rare and super rare the whole season because I love him as a defender. And I was like, World Cup's coming, he's staying because I know he's playing. And same for what's his name, the keeper as well. Can't remember now. LAFC keeper.
Crepo.
Crepo. Yeah, he's my keeper. He's 10% experience. So I think they can do all right, but I think it's hard against Belgium and Croatia. But all those teams, the three, Mexico, the US, and Canada, like it's the rehearsal. So they kind of have to do good. Because in 4 years they will want to do good at home. So we never know. They could surprise us.
Good shout. Because as well, like one of the kind of under the radar people I think could have a decent World Cup. I'm not going to say they're going to win any awards or anything, but they'll probably make a name for themselves. Is the boy at Montreal? I think his name's Ishmael Koney, and he gives me. I remember watching. I wasn't like watching MLS the way I do now, but I remember like hearing from MLS and seeing the highlights and whatever when Alphonso Davies kind of broke on the scene, and this. Ishmael Koney's not maybe quite Alphonso Davies' impact on his breakout, but Montreal exceeded expectations. Yada yada yada. He's going to the World Cup, and he'll probably actually get some good minutes for Canada. And he's a player that maybe after a couple of games, people are like, oh, he's actually like he's actually quality. Maybe he gets a transfer or something. So yeah, I just think Canada have got a few wee kind of burgeoning talents that, you know, World Cup sometimes can be kind to.
There definitely will be a surprise, Quinny. Something's going to happen that nobody thinks. So yeah, could, you know, I mean, stranger things have happened. Like you say, South Korea got to a semi and they're in their one. When was that, a Euros or a World Cup? Oh, was it a Euros or a World Cup? I'm about to make Yeah, I was going to say the Ghana one where Suarez handballed, but yeah, both of those teams are not in Europe. So yeah, well done, Josh. But yeah, that one where Ghana went really far with Asamoah Gyan scoring all the time.
Yeah, that was the South Africa World Cup, wasn't it?
Was that at South Africa as well? Oh, I must have a very vivid memory of that World Cup.
Luis Suarez handball,
obviously. Yeah, that clip came up on Twitter again the other day. That's what made me think of it.
I think that tells we've probably taken too much of Josh's time. His batteries are running out. He needs to go and recharge in his chamber. Go back in. I don't know if you've ever seen what's the name of the TV show? Is it called Boba Fett? You know, the Star Wars stuff. They've got these mad banta tanks they go into, and it's like a mad bath, and they've got that thing on. And that's what Josh does when he's not on content, and then he comes out and he makes his teams. So we'll let you recharge your batteries, Josh. Thanks for coming on. And Jeremy, it's probably way past your bedtime, mate.
Thanks for having me. It's tomorrow already here. I'm all right. Tomorrow's my day off. I'm good.
You're going to get to watch the World Cup before us at this rate, mate.
Yeah, that's what happens, Jeremy. Come on.
Friends play like 3 times at like 6 a.m., 2 a.m., 2 a.m. It's terrible.
But it's all.
Hey, no
Guys,
sleep.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've had tons of fun recording this. I hope everyone enjoys listening to it. I'm pretty sure anyone listening to this is either going to make a decision that will improve dramatically their performance in the Global Cup, and there'll be an equal measure of people that will make a decision after listening to this that will make their score go down dramatically. So I hope there's more of you on the upside than the downside. Good luck to everyone. Guys, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Quinny.
Thanks for having us.